The BFG, with Sophie now sitting on the palm of his hand, stood nearby, watching the operation. To give the soldiers their due, they are extremely courageous. There were six well-trained, efficient men working on each giant. So 54 men. And within 10 minutes, 8 out of the 9 giants had been trussed up like chickens and were still snoring contentedly. The ninth, who happened to be the flesh lump eater, was causing trouble for the soldiers because he was lying with his right arm tucked underneath his enormous body. It was impossible to tie his wrists and arm together without first getting that arm out from underneath him. Very, very cautiously, the 6 soldiers who were working on the flesh lump eater began to pull at the huge arm, trying to release it. The flesh lump eater opened his tiny piggy eyes.
"Which of you foul pesters is wiggling my arm?" he bellowed. "Is that you rotten man-hugger?"
Suddenly, he saw the soldiers. In a flash, he was sitting up. He looked around him. He saw more soldiers. With a roar, he leapt to his feet. The soldiers, petrified with fear, froze where they were. They had no weapons with them. The head of the army put his jeep into reverse. More courage from him.
"Human beings!" the flesh lump eater yelled. "What is all you flesh-punking, rotsome, half-baked beings doing on our country?"
He made a grab at a soldier and swept him up in his hand.
"Ha! I is having early suppers today,"
he shouted, holding the poor squirming soldier at arm's length and roaring with laughter. "Ah, ha, 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 ha!" Sophie, standing on the palm of the BFG's hand, was watching, horror-struck. "Do something!" she cried. "Quick, before he eats him!"
"Put that human being down!"
the BFG shouted. The flesh lump eater turned and stared at the BFG.
"What is you doing here with all these grotty twiglets?" he bellowed. "You is making me very suspicious."
The BFG made a rush at the flesh lump eater, but the colossal 54-foot-high giant simply knocked him over with a flick of his free arm. At the same time, Sophie fell off the BFG's palm onto the ground. Her mind was racing. She must do something. She must. She must. She remembered the sapphire brooch the queen had pinned onto her chest. Quickly, she undid it. Remember, it's got a brooch is like a pin that goes on a dress, and it's got a long needle. It's about this long, and it sticks into the cloth. If you ever put a pin on, that's what it's like.
"I is guzzling you nice and slow," the BFG was saying to the soldier in his hand. "Then I is guzzling 10 or 20 more of you midgy little maggots down there. You is not getting away from me because I is galloping 50 times faster than you."
Water break. Sophie ran up behind the flesh lump eater. Oh, there's the brooch right there. There's the pin. She was holding the brooch between her fingers. When she was right up close to the great, naked, hairy legs, she rammed a 3-inch long pin of the brooch as hard as she could into the flesh lump eater's right ankle. It went deep into the flesh and stayed there. Imagine a really long thorn in your ankle. There's it. The giant gave a roar of pain and jumped high in the air. He dropped the soldier and made a grab for his ankle. The BFG, knowing what a coward the flesh lump eater was, saw his chance. "Oh, you was bitten by a snake!" he shouted. "I see it biting you. It was a frightsome Pousnouse viper. It was a dreadly dangerous windscreen viper." Dreadly dangerous? Deadly dangerous. Anyways, I love it.
"Save our souls!" bellowed the flesh lump eater. "Sound the crumpet! I was bitten by a septitious venomsome windscreen viper!" He flopped to the ground and sat there howling his head off and clutching his ankle with both hands. His fingers felt the brooch. "The teeth of the dreadly viper are still sticking into me!" he yelled. "I was feeling the teeth sticking into my anklet!" The BFG saw his second chance. "We must be getting those viper's teeth out of you at once," he cried. "Otherwise you will tender than duck soup. I is helping you." The BFG knelt down beside the flesh lump eater. "You must grab your anklets very tight with both hands," he ordered. "That will stop the Pousnouse juices from the venomsome viper going up your leg and into your heart." The flesh lump eater grabbed his ankle with both hands. "Now, close your eyes and grit your teeth and look up to heaven and say your prayers while I is taking out the teeth of the venomsome viper," the BFG said.
The terrified flesh lamp eater did exactly as he was told. The BFG signaled for some rope. The soldiers rushed it over to him, with both the flesh lamp eater's hands gripping his ankle. It was a simple matter for the BFG to tie the ankles and hands together with a tight knot. I was pulling out the frightsome viper's teeth, the BFG said as he pulled the knot tight.
Do it quickly, shouted the flesh lamp eater, before I is pissing to death.
There he is, the BFG said. You can look now. When the BFG saw that he was trussed up like a turkey, he gave a yell so loud that the heavens trembled. He rolled and he wriggled. He fought and he figgled. He squirmed and he squiggled. But there was not a thing he could do. Well done, you, Sophie cried. Well done, you, said the BFG, smiling down at the little girl. You are saving all our lives. Will you please get the brooch back for me? Sophie said. It belongs to the queen. The BFG pulled the beautiful brooch out of the flesh lamp eater's ankle. The flesh lamp eater howled. The BFG wiped the pin and handed it back to Sophie. Curiously, not one of the other 8 snoring giants had woken up during this schmozzle. When you're only sleeping 1 or 2 hours a day, you are sleeping extra doubly deep, the BFG explained. The head of the army and the Air Force drove forward once again in their jeep.
Her Majesty will be very pleased with me,
the head of the army said. I shall probably get a medal. What's the next move? I hope the truth comes out that they were cowards. Now, you was all driving over to my cave to load up my bottles of dreams.
We can't waste time with that rubbish,
the army general said. It was the Queen's order, Sophie said. She was now back on the BFG's hand. So the 9 jeeps drove across to the BFG's cave, and the great dream-loading operation began. There were 50,000 jars in all to be loaded up, more than 5,000 to each jeep, and it took over an hour to finish the job. While the soldiers were loading the dreams, the BFG and Sophie disappeared over the mountain on a mysterious errand. When they came back, the BFG had a sack the size of a small house slung over his shoulder.
What's that you've got in there?
The head of the army demanded to know.
Curiosity is killing the rat,
the BFG said, and he turned away from the silly man. Roald Dahl may have been in the army, but he doesn't seem to have a lot of respect for generals. Maybe the generals don't deserve respect sometimes. When he was sure that all his precious dreams had been safely loaded onto the jeeps, the BFG said, now, we is driving back to the belly poppers and picking up the frightsome giants. The jeeps drove back to the helicopters. The 50,000 dreams were carried carefully, jar by jar, onto the helicopters. The soldiers stayed back on board, but the BFG and Sophie stayed on the ground. Then they all returned to where the 9 giants were lying. Couldn't they have just taken a separate trip for the dreams? It was a fine sight to see them, these great air machines hovering over the trussed-up giants. It was an even finer sight to see the giants being woven